Oklahoma, they have really been the go-to team in the Big 12. They've won the last 5 conference titles. They've made it to the college football playoffs in each of the last 3 seasons. But do they have national championship DNA this season?
Well, I'm going to use Oklahoma as an example because they're the only team that's represented the Big 12. If you look at all their playoff appearances, the common denominator for 2 things is, one, offensively, great offenses, great quarterback play, Lincoln Riley, the system, all of those things. But the defense is what's been lagging, right? In those 4 playoff appearances, they gave up an average of 50 points. They lost by an average of 18 points. When I look at Oklahoma this year, there's a lot of questions. Spencer Rattler, really talented, excited to see him play. But have they answered all the questions on the defensive side of the ball, Coach? Because we know that when you play the big boys, Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama's, the SEC schools, you have to be able to play great defense.
You do, and it all starts with players, obviously. And so I used to tell every position coach and then as a staff, there's 2 ways to evaluate how you're recruiting. Not the rankings. I think those are important, but that's not the final conclusion. The conclusion is rings won, and then the NFL draft in the spring. How about these numbers? It blows your mind. The last 10 years of first 3 rounds. Last 10 years, top 3 rounds. The SEC has 145 defensive players drafted in the first 3 rounds. The Big 12, 33.
Wow.
That's inexcusable. I mean, the Big 12, you're talking about as good a high school football as in America and Texas. Now, let's go back. Texas has hired an elite coach in Chris Ash. Oklahoma, Alex Grinch. They've invested money in the defense. Let's see what happens. But until that changes, football is going to be, 20 years from now, it's still going to, you have to play great defense to win a championship.
Just to hammer home the point, in the last 5 years, only 2 teams have been ranked in the top 20 in total defense. Baylor last year and TCU, I believe, in 2017. I mean, that's how long we're talking about. Now, if you go back to 2000, 2010, back when the Big 12 was a little bit more at least competitive in that way, I think you saw that they had better defenses. They were ranked more within the top 10. And I think one of the things that we've seen evolve is the Big 12 probably had the first mover advantage on the up-tempo spread offenses, at least being throughout the conference. Defenses had a hard time adjusting. Now that's all throughout college football. And what you're seeing now is they haven't adjusted to their own style of play of offense, but other leagues have been able to get the talent, but also can put in schemes that can limit some of that. So I think that's one of the things that's missing right now in the Big 12. It's a talent drain in a way, but it's also the lack of being able to get back up to figuring out that scheme to stop it and limit some of what we're seeing right now to the Big 12.
Yeah, and it's tough, right? Because the game has changed. Offenses are playing at a much faster pace now than they've ever played before. But when you think about the Big 12, and like you alluded to earlier, Matt, they don't play a ton of defense, right? I remember the game last year, the Red River rivalry, where Oklahoma and CeeDee Lamb was running through the Texas defense. They couldn't tackle him. But I think if there was ever a team that could do it from the Big 12 this year, I think it would have to be Oklahoma State, because I think about the big 3 of Spencer Sanders, Tylan Wallace, and Chuba Hubbard. And if those 3 can really lock in and just focus and go off this year, I believe they can do that. And if you give Chuba Hubbard even a little bit of a crease, he is gone. He has elite speed. You're not going to catch him when he gets a crease in the open field. And then you match that speed up with Tylan Wallace, who, when I think about him, I think of one word. I think fearless. And you look at what he's able to do. Those are 4 defenders right there that have an opportunity to tackle this young man in the open field. And then the mean stiff arm to the face, not once, but twice. And that's the kind of plays that you don't really see that from receivers, right? You see that from running backs.
Well, we see in the Big 12 because of bad defense and bad tackling. that's exactly what we're talking about right now.
Exactly. And so that's the point that we're all making here. You got to play better defense when you get to the playoffs. And that's what the Big 12, that's where they need to close that gap.
So, Reggie, going away from the leaders of the pack in the ACC and the Big 12. So high on Carolina, high on Oklahoma
This
State.
is the year.
I like your bravery,
2020,
Reggie.
Rob. Come on.
Oh, man, 2020. we are in it deep, aren't we? 2020.
Big Noon Kickoff, Saturdays at 11 Eastern on Fox and the Fox Sports app.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here, College Football on Fox.